All right, so our training agenda today is going to be about Hub basics, and we're going to do some reporting considerations, how to submit reports in EVP, and how to find or verify hubs. We're going to talk about some basics that state policy encourages the use of historically underutilized businesses and purchases of goods and services, and reporting covers purchases from term contracts and open market contracts for the current fiscal year. Purchases from non-governmental entities count towards total purchases. So that is, people who are organizations that are for profit, nonprofit, they're just not government entities. We count the dollars from those. We don't count it from government entities, just it'll make more sense later. Only firms certified with the Hub office count towards Hub participation, and reports are submitted on a quarterly basis. So there are two types of reporting. There are purchasing of goods and services, which is what we're covering in this webinar. And there's construction spending. That's not covered in this webinar. That report, though, is due tomorrow. For Q4 construction spending reports are due on the 10th of the month. Typically, for goods and services, they're due on the 30th day of the month after a quarter ends. We'll talk about that due date in a little bit, though. So a little bit of overview about the Hub office. We are the Office for Historically Underutilized Business, and we promote diversity and inclusion in state government procurement and contracting. Our main roles include Hub certification, so we are the certifying entity for historically underutilized businesses in the state. We also certify the North Carolina Small Business Enterprise certification. We do advocacy and business development services with the firms that are certified. We do compliance and reporting, and we have the Minority Business Development Agency Business Center, which is a grant from the U.S. Department of Commerce. So what is a certified Hub vendor? The certification criteria is that there's 51% ownership and daily management and control by individuals who are in the Hub certification categories. And they have to be Hub certified to count towards Hub spending and Hub participation. Somebody can be considered a Hub if they just have that ownership and control, but they can't be counted towards our Hub participation goals unless they are certified. So our certification categories, the minority ones, and we don't have a category that is minority, but the categories are Black, Hispanic, Asian American, American Indian. And then we have female, disabled, disadvantaged, and we've got a fairly new one, employee stock ownership plan. So those are the different categories that we have. We actually don't have anybody certified as an ESOP yet, so you won't see them anywhere quite yet. Self-identified categories, we have disabled business enterprise and nonprofit work centers for the blind and severely disabled. Those are both types of nonprofits. They're not certified by the Hub office. They are self-designated. So they are not part of the Hub certification categories. Their spending is captured by statute. We have to capture it, but it's not counted towards Hub dollars or for Hub participation. Okay, moving forward. Here are where you will find Hub vendors across North Carolina. And we've got these broken out by how many vendors are in each county. And as of last week, we had 7,187 certified Hubs that are in the state of North Carolina and from outside North Carolina. So there are some areas of the state where there are more Hub vendors. There's more than 500 Hub vendors in Mecklenburg, Guilford, and Wake County. And then you've got Union, Cabarrus, Johnston, Cumberland, Forsyth, Pitt that all have over 100 vendors, but less than 500 or up to 500. So we are looking at ways that we can reach out to different areas to get more vendors in those lighter colored counties. So out in the far west and that northeast area that we show on the map, we are looking at trying to do a little bit more work with them to get more folks certified from those areas. Okay, let's see. And moving forward, the certification process, it's basically 3 steps to get certified. There's registration with the electronic vendor portal system. There's completion of the statewide uniform certification application in EVP and uploading required documents in EVP. So we have gone completely online with our certification process as of last July when EVP took over from IPS. We do have the option for handling things sent to us by email, but we're really pushing for folks to do things through the EVP website. We know that there may be some folks out there, maybe they don't have a lot of bandwidth on their internet, so uploading a lot of documents could take us really long time. So for those folks, we have the option for them to send it to us, and we'll deal with it. But certifications last for 4 years, and there's the option for 4-year renewal each time it comes up, and it takes 45 to 90 days to get certified. There's no fee to be certified. And reciprocity options do exist. So if somebody is certified from another organization in North Carolina that we recognize as, hey, they do a good job doing their certifications and vetting these folks, then they have an easier time getting certified with us. So if they are already DOT disadvantaged business enterprise certified, then they have a way easier time. So there's a few others that we accept on a reciprocity basis, and we don't necessarily need to go into that now. But if people have questions, we will be happy to answer those either immediately or through email. So Hub certification help. If firms are looking for help with their Hub certification, we have training webinars available on YouTube. They can also be accessed from our website in our resource center. And they can also contact the Hub office. This phone number is staffed by certification team members. So if anybody calls the main line at the Hub office, then the people who answer it are certification staff, and we'll be able to answer a lot of your questions. The other way is to send an email, and this goes to our certification team as well. Legislative background, just sharing a little bit here. So the goal of 10%, which there is a 10% goal on spending of goods and services purchases with Hub vendors, was established in Executive Order 25. Each governor typically signs a new executive order when they come in, and that 10% goal has been in place for a while. So North Carolina General Statute 14348 is the state policy to encourage the use of small and historically underutilized businesses. And it also talks about reporting requirements and which agencies need to report. Then you've got North Carolina General Statute 143-128.4, and that is the statewide uniform certification that defines historically underutilized businesses. It says the Department of Administration certifies hubs and maintains a database of those firms, and only certified hubs count towards minority business participation. So that's where we get, you have to be certified in order to count. So who reports? There are, for last fiscal year, there were 11 cabinet agencies. This coming fiscal year, 24-25, there's going to be 12 of them. There are 9 Council of State agencies, 9 support agencies, 19 public universities or university institutions, 58 community colleges, 115 school systems, and 6 nonprofits that report. And actually, I think it's down to 5 nonprofits right now. So that's who reports on a quarterly basis. And when we look back in time, the last full fiscal year that was reported, we had over $10 billion in total spend, and spending with hub vendors was at $716 million. That percentage of spending was at 6.59%. That does not meet our 10% goal. There are some agencies that have met the 10% goal, but it is a constant. You don't just meet it in Q2 and you're done for the year. You have to keep working on it and look at it spending throughout the entire year to determine if somebody met that goal. But we do have agencies that do achieve that. So it is possible, and we've made a lot of progress. This isn't at the goal, but it's higher than it has been in some years. Fiscal year 23-24, so that's the year that we're reporting for Q4 right now. This was as of June 27th. We were at $6 billion in spending total, with spending with hubs at $475 million, and the percent at 7.65%. You may be looking at that 475 and comparing it to the 716 going, wow, we're spending a lot less. That's what it shows right there. However, one thing to bear in mind is a lot of the state agencies use a system called the Hub Spending Report System. And because the state switched from NCAS, the North Carolina Accounting System, to the North Carolina Financial System, NCFS, that impacted significantly the source of the data for the cabinet agencies, Council of State, and support agencies, and one university. So there's more data coming. We don't have it yet. So I expect these numbers to rise, and I'm eagerly looking forward to the day when all those agencies can get their spending. I know that they've been eager to get that information throughout the year, so they could see how they were doing. Let's see, so moving forward, hub purchasing of goods and services expenditure reporting. So here's the reporting period. So here's our periods: Q1, 2, 3, and 4. The dates covered for Q1 are July 1 through September 30th. October 1 through December 31st is second quarter. January 1 to March 31st is third quarter. April 1st to June 30th is fourth quarter. And that's what most of the folks will be reporting now. So typically that report is due July 30th, and that still is in effect for all the community colleges, universities, and community colleges, universities, and school systems. There are some state agencies that don't use the Hub Spending Report System, like Ports Authority, DOT, and Education Lottery, and their due date will still be July 30th for those. The Hub Spending Report System agencies, they were only able to get Q1 out of the SRS before the NCFS issues took over. So they still have Q2, Q3, and Q4 to submit. And those updates to SRS are expected to be implemented in August 2024. So they won't be able to submit them this quarter. So we're not going to hold them to the July 30th date. How can they meet that date if they can't even get into their data to see what they're doing? So everybody else, your due date is the same, but the Hub Spending Report System folks, that due date will depend on when the system goes live for you to actually be able to use. So what's reported? We do term contracts, so state term contracts, open market purchases, from non-governmental entities, and we look at actual payments. So we're not looking at like a 3-year purchase order and saying, oh, it's a $300,000 purchase order, so I'm going to put $300,000 in there. No, you're just looking at how much was spent in a given year. So how much actually went out to the vendor, not how much you plan to spend with them, but how much you actually spent with them. So purchases can be made by purchase order payments, direct payments, P-card payments, and there is a list of state term contracts that can be found on the North Carolina Purchasing Contract website, and here's the link to that. There are hub vendors on that term contract site, so if you are using any of these contracts, you may be working with a hub vendor, and you may have more hub spend than you expect. So there is office supplies. There is a hub vendor that has that state term contract office supplies, and it means they serve people everywhere in the state, wherever they are. It's the same cost all across the state, and they have to be able to provide service everywhere in the state. So in particular, the office supplies thing, if you're buying any office supplies, I would encourage you to use that state term contract. I believe it's mandatory for state agencies, but it's probably voluntary for the community colleges, universities, and school systems. But if you're not using it, you may be doing yourself a disservice both in cost, quality, timeliness of service, and also hub dollars. So I would strongly encourage you to take a look at those. If you buy air filters for your organization, if you buy office supplies, then take a look at that. And if somebody sends you something that has air filters on it or office supplies, say, have you checked to see if this is on a state term contract before going ahead and approve it? Okay, so moving on from that, some examples of goods and services that are not term contract include general supplies, equipment, furniture, computers and peripherals, vehicles, medical supplies, services, and commodities basically is something physical that you can touch, you can move, you can knock on or whatever. Services basically going to be cleaning, janitorial, landscaping, information technology, support, software, medical care, legal services, something where you may get something physical out of it. Like if somebody does a report for you and says, here is the report, and hands you a booklet. You're not paying for the booklet, you're paying for the information inside it and the work that was done to create that report. So that would be considered a service, even though you do end up with something physical as well. So what spending is not included? Spending with governmental entities as your vendor. If any of these show up in your reports, you need to exclude the spendings from your total. So if there's some kind of, like say a municipality, it takes care of your water and sewer, a bill from them would not go into the total amount for this purchase and purchases of goods and services. If you have a contract with a state university or community college to provide some service, that does not count. Also, with counties, sheriff departments, local jails, correction enterprises, since they're part of Department of Adult Correction, and any vendors mandated by the General Assembly or some other rule. If you don't have an option to put it out for bid, then that's not something that we want to count, because that means a hub vendor cannot compete for it. So personal services like salaries, wages, benefits, those kinds of things, those are not counted towards the total. Aid and public assistance is not counted. Reserves and intergovernmental transactions are not counted. So here are some things that we do not count. So these are expenditure codes that we exclude from our total. So you don't add these to the total. If you've got workshop or conference expenses or registration fees, we don't count that, because typically it's just one organization, and they don't put it out for bid, for who's going to do that workshop. Some hospital provided services, rent or lease agreements on your buildings, electrical services, water and sewer, internet service provider charges or cable TV, inmate tuition, prescription drugs, legal settlements or court costs, pension fund payments, debt service payments, anything that, thanks Jim for volunteering. That'll be great when we get to that point. So anything that, if you can't tell us who you used, like legally you can't tell us, then that would not be something we would want to count. If you because sometimes that might be like you're paying a confidential informant. You know, you don't want to put that on the payroll. Say this guy's getting money from us, and then the bad guys say, "Oh, he's getting money from them. Wonder why." You know, so it's protecting folks that need to receive payment. Tracking subcontractor spending for goods and services. We do want to track utilization of goods and services from subcontractors. Sometimes you'll hear that as second tier or multi-tier. We encourage that. You must be able to document, track, and report in the same way as you would your normal prime vendors, the people you actually pay directly. You would need to know the date of the purchase, the type of the purchase, whether it would be from a state term contract, commodity, or service. And you need to be able to verify that the subcontractors were Hub certified at the time of payment, as well as identifying the Hub category of the subcontractors. So, and then the Hub office emails a quarterly report of the Computer Aid Incorporated IT staffing subcontractor spending to state agencies and any community colleges that use that contract. And we'll get into that in a moment. We do want you to be capturing subcontractor spending, but we do need you to be able to track this information. We don't want you to just say, "Oh yeah, I know they spent money with a Hub. Here's the dollar amount." You've got to be able to provide this other information, or you need to have this information so that you can be confident that what the prime is telling you is correct and accurate. On the construction side of things, there's all sorts of forms that we have, when people are submitting bids, and after they've started working with folks, they keep up with who was paid that was a Hub vendor, and we don't have that built in by statute on the goods and services side. So it may be a little bit more challenging to capture that, but it can be worth the effort to do that. And the reason that I say that is this one contract from Computer Aid Incorporated. It's an IT short-term staffing contract. It's run through the Department of Information Technology. This one contract has millions of dollars running through it. Just this in the quarter that's in this example, there was $31 million in total spend on this contract, and $6 million of it was with Hub vendors. So that is not a small amount, and it has definitely made an impact. You can see here, Department of Transportation, they have over $1.9 million in spend with Hub vendors, and that helped their overall Hub percentage pretty substantially. So it is worth taking a look at subcontracting, especially on large contracts, to see if there's any Hub spend there. This is a report that we get from CAI, the company that manages this contract, on a quarterly basis. It comes to us in a format that's not this format. We take the information that they shared with us and we compile it and we aggregate it so that we can tell you this information. And this doesn't go out to everybody, but we try to send it out to all the agencies that would typically use it. So we don't typically send this out to school systems. If it's a community college that use it, we will send it to that particular community college if they showed up on the report, but we don't send it out to all 58 community colleges. Similar with the universities. If there was a university that used this contract, they would get this report. But if they didn't, then we would not send it. And the way that people use this is these red values. The agency would go into their report and add this to what they already have just under the Hub area. We already capture the total spend, so we don't need that. We are just adding on to the Hub dollar amounts in the specific categories of their certification. So it's all a benefit and can only raise your Hub participation percentage if you spent money with hub vendors on this contract. So that's kind of similar with if you're doing other second tier spending, it would be similar. Okay, so any questions about that? Okay, and Jim, I can show, Jim said, curious what you see on your side of the hub report. I can show y'all that a little bit later if we've got time. So reporting hub spend, I'm going to talk about data sources, and I'm going to try to move along because I think I'm a little behind. Community colleges use eProcurement and Colleague as their data sources for their spending reports for hub. School systems typically use Link or Sunpack, though some have like a locally developed database, and there are some that have been working with DPI, Department of Public Instruction, on some financial system upgrades. That I don't think that is more than a handful of school systems at this point. If you are in that situation, or you're thinking about doing an upgrade, make sure that Hub is part of that, because it is really tough to go back and manually figure it out if your system is not built to accommodate it. Public universities, their systems vary, but they may be Argos, Banner, PeopleSoft, WebFocus. Nonprofits, their systems vary. P-card isn't applicable to nonprofits, so they would not be reporting on P-card. And for state agencies, DOT and Ports Authority use SAP. Education Lottery uses Dynamics, and all the others use the Hub Spending Report system. For P-card purchases, for any entity that actually uses a P-card, Bank of America's Works system would be where you would get your data. It's not linked to the Hub Office database, so you do have to be a little bit careful about reports that you get from there, because when people register with Works, they may say, "Oh yes, I'm a minority-owned business," and tell what categories they think they fall into, but that's not that they're certified. That's a self-identification, and we have to go based on if people are certified. So it's just a little more challenging with the P-card purchases. So looking at Colleague, the commodity codes do matter. You use the XHUR report, and it depends on those commodity codes to put the purchases in the right categories of term contract, commodity, or service contract. Tracking P-card spending, it's not supported in Colleague, and that data would come from Works. So here's just an image of what the XHUR report looks like. It shows term contract purchases, services purchases, and it also has a detailed list of vouchers by hub category as well. Link Hub reports. I'm showing this. This is different. If you've been on these presentations before, this is a different image than we normally use, because we got some information from Kelly Elliott from Surrey County Schools. And they use Link version 6. She says to use the report builder, and I'm not going to go through all of this. It's in the slides that I sent out. But if you use Link, this would be a way to get your information. So you use report builder. There is a budget analysis, works the same way, but it has a lot of columns that you would not need for hub reporting. So she recommends using report builder first. And then you can create a report of hub services and a separate report for hub supplies. So services would go under services, supplies under commodities in EVP. So this is additional screenshots here, creating a report for hub supplies. So, and you'll actually see it says report name hub supplies, and you select what you need to and generate the report, and it'll give you this report. If you have questions about that, I don't have answers. This is information shared with us from Kelly with Surrey County Schools. So she may not want me saying call her, but if you have questions, she might be a good resource for you. So there we go. So I'm going to move on. For folks who use Sunpack, and there's another name for it too that escapes me right now, but it is set up a little bit more like how we do it in EVP. So I believe it might be a little simpler to pull these reports and enter them into EVP than it is with Link. So, oh yeah, and we recommend reporting based on invoices rather than purchases. So we want to know what was actually paid out rather than what will be paid. All right. Okay. Nonprofit reports, we assign the nonprofits right now to the support agencies category, and they only report on the amount that they received as an appropriation from the General Assembly. And then they report on commodities and services, but not state term contracts because they're not eligible to use state term contracts. And the way that the nonprofits report is we have a spreadsheet that is basically mirroring the EVP report, and we share that, and the nonprofits will fill out the spending that they have. They will email it back to us, and then Hub staff will actually take that information and put it into EVP for them. And we've also done that for organizations that could not actually log into EVP. So the Hub spending report system, it's designed so that data is typically available 10 days after the month or the quarter ends. This year has been a vast change to that typical availability, but it's designed so that 10 days after the month or quarter ends, you would be able to see that information. So it's not live data. It's it has to, the period has to end, and it's got to be processed a little bit before it gets into the spending report system. It captures actual spend from the North Carolina financial system, NCFS, and for direct payments and e-procurement purchase orders. And summaries are available by quarter and month, PO spend and direct payments. And it also has detailed data by PO line item available, including vendor and hub status. There's an incredible amount of information, including commodity codes and a lot of other information that can be used to analyze this. There's also reports available in there for the North Carolina small business enterprise spending. So it's very similar to the hub spend. And so it has consistency in how you would read that report. So an update, I mentioned there's a transition from NCAS to the North Carolina financial system. It impacted e-procurement and the spending report system. And the only report that agencies that use SRS have been able to submit so far for fiscal year 23-24 has been quarter one. So that was submitted, but quarter two, quarter three, and quarter four aren't available until user acceptance testing is done. And that's expected to take place in July or August. The hub spending report systems, they won't be held to that July 30th due date for quarter two, quarter three, quarter four. So which agencies use Hub SRS? And this is probably the last I'll say about SRS. The cabinet agencies, administration, adult correction, commerce, environmental quality, health and human services, information technology, military and veterans affairs, natural and cultural resources, public safety and revenue. We will be adding State Bureau of Investigation to that group, but they're not there yet. They were not their own separate department in fiscal year 23-24, so they don't have to report for that. Council of State Agencies are agriculture and consumer services, insurance, justice, labor, public instruction, treasurer, North Carolina auditor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, support agencies. And the difference between those is the cabinet agencies all report to the governor directly. Council of State, they have elected officials that run those organizations. And then we've got the support agencies that are kind of in between. They're neither of those things. That's the Board of Elections, the Community College System Office, General Assembly, Administrative Hearings, Office of the Governor, the State Controller, and Wildlife Resources Commission. Then we also have one university that uses SRS, and that's the School of Science and Math. Okay, so we're going to move on to EVP, and we'll eventually be able to share some screens here, I hope. The new version of EVP launched July of 2023. It replaced the North Carolina Interactive Purchasing System. So if anybody says, yeah, I got it in IPS, no, they didn't. Not this year anyway. And if they're referencing IPS, maybe they're just holding over. Maybe they're just like, oh yeah, I meant EVP, but I said IPS. But it's worth mentioning to folks, IPS does not exist anymore. NC Bids was replaced. It had was used for submitting electronic bids. Also replaced was the Hub Vendor Search and the previous version of EVP. So there is a public-facing portal, and you can look at solicitations that are there, as well as vendors that are available, and all the vendors in EVP are searchable there, not just Hub vendors. So there's about 40,000 vendors in EVP, and a little over 7,000 of those are Hub certified. And you can, there's a lot of different ways that you can do that search. We may touch base on that in a little bit. You can also, vendors can also sign in or register to do business with the state. And that's where they would go and say, I want to be Hub certified, I want to be NCSBE certified, and they would, do their application and upload their documents there. Goods and services Hub spending is also done through EVP using the Hub Statistics app. So what's needed to access EVP Hub Stats? You need a valid NCID. It can only have one email address associated with it. It must be set up with a user type of either state employee or local employee. So I would imagine that all the school systems, your NCID would say local employee. All the cabinet agencies, council of state, supporting agencies, yours would say state employee. This is something that has been challenging for the nonprofits because there's not really an option for nonprofits. And that's why right now we're still using a spreadsheet system with them. The NCID must be active and it must not be locked in order for it to work. The agency NCID administrators can set up NCIDs, and there is a list of administrators, and it's specific to local education agencies, so the school systems, state agencies, that includes UNC system universities, and counties, which includes community colleges. So if you need to find your NCID administrator, you can find them there. It will only list their phone number. It does not list an email address. So hopefully you have a way of, communicating with them. If you want to pick up the phone, great. If you don't, hopefully you have a way of getting their email address internally. You also have to have your authorized purchasing officer submit a completed EVP user maintenance form. If you were already able to do certain things in IPS, like post bids in IPS, it rolled over into EVP. So if you were using it before, you should have been able to use it in EVP. But if you're a new user, new to the organization, you changed from one school system to another, then you'll need an EVP user maintenance form completed for you, and be sure to select the Hub Statistics user under user access level. And the Hub office is not responsible for that user maintenance request form. That's run through the Division of Purchase and Contracts. But we are in close communication with them, because whenever they see a Hub Statistics user request come in, they will contact us and say, hey, should we give this person access? And we'll say yes or no. Okay, so once you have access, you would log in using this URL here. And if I'm looking at the one that was put in the chat, that looks to be the same. So Linda, I think that link that you had is the same as the one I've got here. You should also be able, in the PDF that you've got, you should be able to actually click on this, and it should be able to take you to that login screen. You would enter your email address associated with your NCID, or select your email address if it's already in there. You don't actually type in your NCID. If the NCID was for John Smith was J Smith, you wouldn't actually type in J Smith. You would type in the email address that's associated with that, which might be john.smith@dor.gov. So you use the email address, not the actual NCID. Then you enter your NCID password, and if it auto-populates, click sign in. You may be instructed to authenticate your access with multi-factor authentication. That's fine. Go ahead and do that if it's requested. The EVP dashboard for your organization should appear on the screen after you log in. Do we have any questions about that at this point? And if you are still having issues with logging in to EVP and you're not a nonprofit who doesn't even have the capability of doing that, can you put that in the chat so we can try to keep up with that? The ways to troubleshoot that, if you're trying to log in and you're having trouble, first you need to make sure you contact your NCID administrator, make sure your account's not locked, that the user type is set appropriately either to state employee or local employee. And once that's confirmed and you're still not able to log in, reach out to PNC's system support and ensure that your access to the Hub Statistics user app in EVP has been granted. And if you get an error message, it's often helpful to take a screenshot of that. And if you can include the URL in that screenshot, sometimes that's helpful to diagnose what's going on. But if they come back and say, yeah, looks like you should be able to do this, you should be able to log on, but you're not able to, then call the NCDIT help desk. That's the 919-754-6000. And I think you can also reach out by email to the help desk. And if you do, you might be able to provide some screenshots, or you may be able to just talk them through what's going on, and they may be able to help you out. All right. So EVP training resources, there's a bunch of resources out there, and they can be found on the EVP training site. It's actually eProcurement's training site, but a lot of it is related to EVP. And it includes how to access, review, and approve a Hub Statistics record. So that's the direct one, goes to Hub Goods and Services reporting. They're up at the top of this screen, but there are other training materials there about posting solicitations, viewing bids that have been posted, entering bid tabulations, posting contract extensions, the Hub Goods and Services reporting, which is the link up here, and then searching for registered vendors as well. So there's a fair amount of training materials available, and we have actually on our website recorded some trainings on how to use the EVP vendor search to find Hub vendors. So that's a resource as well. Some data entry basics in EVP. All the dollar values entered should be whole numbers only. Please don't give us, how many cents you spent on a purchase. If it's between 1 and 49 cents, round down to the nearest dollar. If it's 50 cents to 99 cents, then round up to the next nearest dollar. So spending for disabled business enterprise and nonprofit work centers for the blind and severely disabled are captured in the report. However, they fall in a spot that is not counted towards achieving the 10% goal. So we capture the data, and it's in a slightly different area within that section. Okay, so Linda says done. Okay, let's see. I also did not receive the slides and the PDF that were sent. Okay, Amber, thank you for putting your email address in that chat so I can get you that PDF. And here's accessing Hub statistics. So I'm going to run through these screenshots, and then this will be a great time for Jim to share his screen. I'll let you know when I think we're at that point. So this is what I see when I log in. I've got these menus over on the side, but not everybody will. So that's kind of why I want to have Jim show his. But when I go in, I go down to Hub Statistics, and that's this red box down here. And then it'll show me what reports are available. And if there are any numbers in here already, somebody's at least done some data entry. It may not mean that they have been submitted, but they've entered some values. If you don't see anything right here under the term contracts piece, that probably means you need to enter some data. And then what you would likely do is go over here to whichever quarter you want and double click on that quarter to open up the actual report. When you open it up at the top, you'll have a bunch of things that you can do up at the top. You can save it. You can go back to the screen you were just on. You can save it. You can save it and close it. You can approve it. There's some other things here as well, but those are the main things that you would do. It does show you what organization you're looking at, as well as the fiscal year and the quarter and the time period that covers. And if it has been approved already, it will show that down here under approved by, and it will give you the date and the time that it was approved. And if you go ahead and approve it, and then you come back and say, oh, wait, I forgot to add this, you can go back in there, make edits, approve it again, and it will update the approved on date and time. So the save is for if you go in and you do some data entry, but you're not done and you need to go away, go ahead and save it so that if your computer shuts down for some reason, you don't lose what you entered. If you're like, I need to go home, but I'm not done with this, you've entered some data, click save and close so that you can go home. If you're all done with everything and you're confident that all the numbers are in there right, you can go ahead and click approve. And it may be that some folks have a system where somebody does the data entry and somebody has to come in and say, okay, I'm going to approve that. That's up to each organization, how they do it, that's fine. Anything where you see a lock on it, like fiscal year, quarter, total all purchases, hub and non-hub, total hub purchases, total hub percent, all this stuff, that means that's not something that you can actually enter data in there. And that is probably going to be pulling data from somewhere else to fill that out, or it's a formula. So the total of all purchases, hub and non-hub, gets it's a formula that's looking at the total purchases for term contracts, supplies, and services. So it adds those things together to get the total. You don't have to do that. The system does it for you. Same thing with hub. It'll add all the dollars up and it will calculate your hub percentage. And that hub percentage will show right here where it says total hub percentage. If you're not going to be able to complete, you can save and you can keep working on the report, or you can do save and close and capture it and close the record. Sure that I'm not missing anything here. A couple of folks are asking for the slides. So term contract section. So right below that kind of header section. So this is what I would consider the header section. I'm not sure that that is an official name. It just seems like a reasonable name to me to call it. So I would call this the header section. And then this is the term contract section, and it lists term contract purchases, hub and non-hub. So this is the total of all your term contract purchases, whether you spent money with hubs or not. And then you've got all the different hub certification categories: Black, Hispanic, Asian American, American Indian, female, disabled owned, and socially and economically disadvantaged. And then you've got term contract purchases. And that is, you'll notice it's got a lock next to it. So that's it's basically adding up all the dollar values from Black down to socially and economically disadvantaged. And down below that is where we would capture disabled business enterprise dollars and nonprofit work center dollars. And over on the right, it's got a whole bunch of percentages, and you notice there's a lock next to each one of them. You can't do anything to that. It just depends on the dollar values that you add in here. Please note that your term contract purchases must be higher than your term contract purchases for hub. So your total for hub and non-hub has to be larger than your amount for hub. You're not just putting non-hub stuff up here, you're putting all your spend. And then all these dollars below this should be a subset of that field up there. And there have been some times where somebody puts in a value up here and then they enter in some values here, it adds it up and it's higher than the amount of the total. And the system doesn't really give a really easy way of capturing, of allowing you to edit that. So there, we kind of have to do a little bit of finagling in that case. So if you come across that, contact us and say, hey, it's giving me this error that that the dollar value is off and it's not letting me adjust it so that I can get the right number in the term contract piece. It's kind of, you basically have to go in, know what your, write down or have on a report what your actual numbers should be for the hub part. And you have to go in and modify your hub values that you put in here so that this term contract purchases for hub then is lower than what it is up above in the total of the hub and non-hub. Then you can modify that total for the hub and non-hub and go back, make sure that it's still larger than what all the hub dollars would be. And then you can go back and put in your accurate hub dollars and it will calculate that. It'll be, the hub dollars will be lower than your total and you'll be able to move on. So that actually, somebody just called me about that this morning, but it has come up before. Okay, so you'll enter your hub spend by certification category. If you don't have any spend in a particular category, just leave it alone. You don't even have to click on it. You can just, the default is 0. So if you only have female spend, just click in female spend, enter your dollar amount and move on. You don't have to put something in the other items. Okay, so again, it will look very similar for commodities. It'll just say commodity purchases instead of term contract purchases, but it's set up the same way. So your total of hub and non-hub is at the top. You enter in your hub dollars. It adds up down here for the commodity purchases for hub. Enter any disabled business enterprise or nonprofit work center dollars, and then move on to the services, which again, is set up the same way for hub and non-hub at the top here. Then your hub values, your services purchases total for hub, and then disabled business enterprise and nonprofit work center. So once you've entered all that in and you're confident that, hey, this is right, I'm going to do this, go ahead and click approve. It's got a little green check mark right next to it. Click approved, and then this field over here that says approved by and approved on will populate based on who is entering the data. I think this might be a good time for me to stop sharing. And if I think it's Jim who volunteered to share his screen. that might be a good time to do that. All right. So I think everybody can see that. I can see it. So Jim, yeah, you're in your Hub statistics. You logged in, and on the menu side, on the left-hand side, I see you've got vendor management, you've got your bid management. So looks like you have the ability to post your solicitations, put your tabulations in there, all that. And then you've got Hub management, you've got Hub statistics. So then it shows you what quarterly reports you have going on there. Did you want to say anything there, Jim, about what you're seeing?
No. Basically what you went through is what is shown here. You can order the columns however you want, to make it easier to view.
And some of those are filterable. If you see that little caret next to it, like where it says quarter with that thing, if you click on that, that's where you can sort it like he was showing, but you can also filter and say, I just want to see the 2023 ones. If you type 2023, it'll just show you, oh, well, I guess that one allows you to select. But yeah, that one. That would only show you Q4 of 2023, because that was the only quarter that we used EVP for reporting for that fiscal year. And you can see that that Jim approved all these, and the date and time that he approved the ones that have already been submitted. And where it has a blank, you'll see under the status reason over there, it says pending for Q4 of 2024. So that's one that he's not yet submitted. Jim, did you want to click in one of those? All right. So that's that header part up at the top that shows the UNCG, and it shows, the status is pending. It's a university, state university, and then it shows the fiscal year and the quarter, and then the total and the for Hub and non-Hub, and the total for Hub purchases. And then he would enter some data there for his Hub and non-Hub. And yeah, so anytime you click in it, it should allow you to make edits there. And are you just doing some examples there?
Yeah.
Jim? Okay. Yeah.
I don't want to click save because I have a feeling it might, I don't know if it'll, I'll be able to overwrite it, I believe.
Yeah, you would. Even after you approve it, you can go back and edit it. But I would ask that if you have any edits to make for Q1 to Q3, go ahead and do them now, before July 30th. Once you get Q4 in there, please don't make any edits to it. So be really sure that Q4 is right before you approve it, because as soon as we're able to, we're going to start pulling data for the fiscal year so we can start getting the annual report together. So as the year's going on, you can edit the quarters that have already gone before, but you really can't do that with Q4. Is there anything else that you think we need to see on this, Jim, or does anybody have questions and want him to show something?
You can kind of see how, when you enter something here, over here it populates the percentage where it's automatic.
Right. And you'll notice that when he entered that $1,000 under term contract, it didn't immediately show up in the total of all purchases up here. He had to save it first before it changed from 0 to 1,000. All right. Well, thank you, Jim. Appreciate your willingness to share that with us. Let me go ahead and come back to the presentation. So we're back here. And I think we already asked this poll question, so I don't need to ask it now. We're going to move on to how to find hub vendors. And in EVP, and it's really easy to find EVP. It's not a hard URL to remember. It's evp.nc.gov, but I never try to remember it anyway. I usually just open a browser and type NC EVP. And this is the link that usually is the first one to come up. And once I'm here, if I'm looking for vendors, I would go to Browse Vendors, click on that, and it would open this basic search. And there's this basic search that only has 6 fields on it, but there's also an advanced search. And we'll touch base on that a little bit. You can do a search without using the advanced search and get a lot of information. If you want all the hub vendors ever, well, not ever, but all the currently certified hub vendors, you would just select certified under this hub certification status box and click search. And it would show you all 7,000 plus vendors, and you would have the ability to export that. Last week we were having some trouble exporting, but it seems like it's been fixed. So if anybody was having trouble last week and they wanted to download either the whole list or a subset of the list, you should be able to do that this week without a problem. But to get to the advanced search, you would click this little triangle to open it up. So on the basic search, first off, I would not recommend using this box over here that doesn't have a title over the box. That is a very broad, very powerful search that overrides every other criteria that you put in. So if you put in roof over here under the search and you say, I want hub certified, but then you say green in the company name, it's going to totally ignore what you put in the vendor name and ignore the hub status and give you everything that has roof in it. So that will give you hub vendors and non-hub vendors that may have green in the company name, or they might not. So that's why I say don't use that search field on the left. And the vendor status, I wouldn't use that either. There's like active and inactive, but that's really not referring to hub certification status. That's more related to EVP or e-procurement status. So I just wouldn't use those two searches on the basic search. But you will want the hub, if you're looking for hubs, you'll want the hub certification status, and you want to click on that little menu bar and select certified. NCSBE, you can also do that. If you're looking for small businesses, you can do that too. But most of the time, you'd probably just be looking for the hub certified. You can put in whatever you want in the vendor name up here, and you don't have to use that. In the previous system, we had to put a little star in front of it as a wild card. We don't have to do that. Now this search is a little bit more flexible, so you can put roof in here and it'll find roof anywhere in the company name, whether it's at the beginning, at the end, somewhere in the middle. So if you select certified under hub certification status, all the firms in your search will be hub certified firms. You can opt to search for NCSBE. Counts do change frequently, so I would not recommend going in here right now and saying, on July 9th, I did a search. Those are the hub vendors that will carry us through for the entire rest of that new fiscal year. We're constantly certifying folks, so I would not recommend just keeping a list that you printed out 6 months ago and saying, these are all the hubs. So if you do want to use the advanced search, and I'll show you what's in there, you click on this little triangle, it'll open up the advanced search, and you'll have a whole lot of different options here. There's an NC e-procurement section here. If you need them to be in e-procurement, you might want to use that. I'm not sure how many people need that. So if you want to use it, you can, but I would probably say limit the different criteria that you're searching on so that you make sure that you get what you're looking for without weeding out people that you might actually want to see. So actually this Hub and NCSBE section probably isn't going to be needed a whole lot because the results will show you what certification categories there are, and you can filter on those as much as you like. If you are looking for disabled business enterprise or nonprofit work centers, this would be how you would do that. I think if you click on that, it'll say like yes or no. There are contractor services here. So if you're looking for, particular contractor, so that's more, a little bit more on the construction and building side. But if you're doing something related to facilities, you may have an interest in that. You can also search by contact and location. Like if you know their email, but you forgot their company name or the name of the guy that you were talking to, you can put that contact email in there and do a search on that. You can also search by county, and we strongly recommend that if you're looking at a particular county, that you don't just look in that county, but you look in at least the surrounding counties, one county out or two counties surrounding that county, to find vendors that could do work in that location. There are some counties that have tons of hub vendors, but there are some that don't have very many, but they may have vendors nearby that could do the work that you need. You can also look by commodity code and construction codes, and these searches are a little bit more challenging. You do have to, and I'll say here, this blue or teal button is your friend. You would want to go in and click add commodity codes, do a search in that, select your commodity codes, and then come back out to this part of the search before you hit search at the bottom. And I'll see if we've got time. I'll see if I could do a quick search to show this. When you do a search, in this example, I put data in the vendor name and then certified under Hub certification status, and the results will show up on the screen. It'll give your company name, main contact, email, phone number, address, if they're active in e-procurement or not. If they're Hub certified, it'll list it. If they're NCSBE certified, it will list it, and it will say if they're a small business, if they're a disabled business enterprise, or a nonprofit work center. If anybody does any road work or work with Department of Transportation projects, this DBE is not the same as DOT's DBE. This is disabled business enterprise. DOT's is disadvantaged business enterprise. It's actually a similar certification to Hub, but it's more intensive because it looks at the size of the company in determining if they meet the criteria. So I just don't want people to be confused. Okay, so you can also click export to Excel to get this into an Excel spreadsheet, and then you'll be able to copy all the emails you want and put them in an email and say, hey, we're interested in having you bid it on this project. There's also additional information that you get on the spreadsheet that does not show up on the screen. So you'll get information like what's the start date of their certification, what's the end date of the certification, what's their certification category will show up there. If you click in the individual company name, and let me go back for a moment. If you click in one of these company names, it will take you to their individual profile. And this was this company name, and it'll show their business characteristics, contacts, locations, commodity codes, construction codes, contractor services, if they're Hub, and what their timing, start and end dates are on that, and what their certification number is. Prior to EVP, this version of EVP, we did not have certification numbers, but we do now, and they're basically Hub-EVP company name number. So it's a number that is associated with that vendor in EVP already. So it's just adding Hub or NCSBE to the front of that. You can also look for vendors by posting opportunities on the Hub Office website. If you post in EVP, if you post a solicitation in EVP, it will automatically be sent to the Hub Office's solicitation dashboard. So you don't have to go in and submit it twice anymore. If you do not use EVP to post solicitations, you still have the ability to go in to the Hub site and say, hey, I want to upload this this information. And there's not an upload, like you can't just say, here's an attachment, upload it. You have to enter in information on the form. We do ask that there be a minimum of 12 days between when you submit the information, if you're using the form, and when the bids are due, so that we have 2 business days to process and post it, and then at least 10 calendar days out there in the world for people to see, so that they have time to say, this is something I'm interested in, and I can actually provide a good quote on it and say, yes, I can do this work. Anyone can submit a form, can submit an opportunity on the Hub Office form, but not everybody can do that in EVP. So a lot of times the folks who do the bid submission form will be local governments that are not as familiar with EVP, or prime contractors who are looking for Hub vendors for their projects. When you do submit the solicitation, this is what it looks like on the screen, on the dashboard, and it will show, you know, when the solicitation is due, what's the organization that wants it, is it construction project, goods and services, architecture and engineering, and then it'll give some project information here. Where's the location of the project? Is there a URL for it? And the project title, and if there's a pre-bid meeting or a pre-solicitation meeting, it'll be here. If it's not, it'll just say, no, there's no meeting, and that's all it'll give. And there's some submission details, project contact information, and you can put your scope of work in here. One thing that we cannot do is upload documents here. So if you want documents to be on this, you need to send us a URL so that we can put that in and people can go to the URL directly. We do strongly recommend taking a screenshot or printing out the screen once this is posted, because once the bid due date has passed, you can't see it anymore on the dashboard. EVP, if you go into EVP, you can see stuff in history now. So it's, as far as we know, when it goes on to EVP, it's there indefinitely, and you can go back in time and look at older solicitations, but that's not the way that the Hub Solicitation Opportunities dashboard works. You can see there's an opportunity report piece, and you can get a sense of globally how many postings there are, how many are construction versus the other types, if any are disaster, and the different locations or organizations that are posting. I don't know how many of you will be interested in that. I use it for aggregate information, but that's how I use it. So we do want, and that was the last slide that I had of the presentation. We do want your help in improving our trainings, and we would ask that you try to click on this link and that you complete an evaluation of the session. And there are some folks who said, hey, I didn't get the presentation. Can you send it to me? Once you get the presentation, you can click on this link and you should be able to submit that. And I can actually, or I think I can put this link in the chat. So if anybody would like to, they can go ahead and fill that out. And I want to go back to the chat to make sure that I have not missed any important questions. Let me go, sorry, I'm going to move real quick. I just want to get back down to where we were. Okay, so this was the form, and this is our contact information. So you can email us here and you can call us. This is the main number. And we thank you for participating.